it's. I'm just happy Chella's there.
We got
really
Chella, the dog,
Yeah.
joining us on Facebook Live as well. Chella, say hi. Well, Chella thinks all this talk means there must be somebody at the door, and so she's playing guard dog. But for any folks who are watching, welcome. I am Scott of Scott Cheap Flights. I'm excited to talk travel, talk cheap flights, whatever is on your mind. So drop your questions or comments in the comment section below. By law, I have to answer the first one no matter what, and then we're going to try to get to as many as we can. So let us know what is on your mind, what questions you got, what trips you're planning this summer, and give a little shout out to Chella. Give some love to Chella in the comment section. She's a little anxious right now. She's not on camera too often, so she wants to be made to feel welcome. Julian, you got any trips planned for this summer? You got anything you're eyeing?
I was supposed to be on my flight right now to Japan, so there's that. But beyond that, nothing planned so far. I mean, I'm sure I'll have something, but as of now, nothing. But you never know what mistake fares will pop up.
This is true. Did you reschedule that Japan trip, or how'd you end up handling it?
No, I just took the voucher on that. It was one of those things that I'm like, yeah, I don't have anything in mind. Also, my schedule and Sarah's schedule, we don't know, exactly when we could reschedule it for. So it's like, well, we'll fly. Unfortunately, we'll fly Air Canada at some point in the future. So we'll be fine. Yeah.
I dig.
But what can you do? One of these days, I'll have a trip planned. Probably domestic first, just for fun. But yeah. We'll see. How about you? Do you have anything planned so far?
I've got Spain in June. Tickets to Spain in June. So I'm watching that border reopening like a hawk. I've kind of given my predictions for Europe reopening. I see there are a few questions in the comment section about when Europe will reopen. I'm somebody I've got skin in the game. I am hoping for, when I make my predictions about when I think Europe is going to open, I don't just say that spouting off. I say that as somebody who has flights to Spain in June. So let's see. Apologies if I mispronounced. Miley asked, what are your thoughts on going to Paris in the fall? Yep. I think I would be very surprised if Paris is not open in the fall. Obviously, things are not looking good right now, today. France announcing they're going back into lockdown. But there is set to be a big surge in vaccinations there over the next month or two. And my predictions about when Europe is going to reopen, and again, reading the tea leaves, reading what the EU is saying, reading what different countries and national governments are saying, my best guess is that at least 2 countries are going to be open for American travelers by June. I would say a 50-50 chance on that. I would say 65% chance by July and 80% chance by August. But it's the Southern European countries that I think are more likely to be open for American travelers sooner. And it's the more Northern European countries that might be taking a little bit longer. Now, why, might you ask, is there going to be a difference? Well, because the places like Spain and Greece rely on tourism much more for their sort of national economy and just for, folks' livelihood there. It is much, much bigger part of their economy than it is in somewhere like Germany or somewhere like France or Belgium. And so they're not quite as raring to go, trying to make this happen as soon as possible. And so France might, be a little bit later in reopening than, say, Spain or Greece. I would be very surprised at this point if Paris was not open by the fall. I would feel definitely comfortable booking tickets to then to Paris for the fall. Like I said, I've got flights to Spain in June that I think there's probably like a 50-50 chance it'll happen at this point. Spain and Greece have both kind of said mid-May is when they're hoping to reopen by. So look, it's a little bit in flux right now. We'll see what happens, but I'm feeling cautiously optimistic, even if right now, today, things are not looking especially great. Portugal is another one. I saw a question from Bobby on Portugal reopening. I think that's in the similar boat as Spain and Greece in hoping to reopen sooner rather than later, because again, Portugal is a country where tourism is a big, big part of their economy. This is one of those things I like to remind folks, look, for all of us individuals, travel feels very kind of optional, feels very discretionary. Like, oh, if I don't take that trip to Spain in June, like, yeah, obviously I want to take it, but it's not the end of the world. If I don't, it's optional. For a lot of folks who run, a small hotel, who run a tour agency, who run a restaurant that caters primarily to tourists, it's not optional. Tourism is essential for tons and tons and tons, millions and millions of people around the world. There was an estimate that 10% of the jobs around the world are supported by tourism. And so I think it's oftentimes to be, I always have to try to remind myself of that when I'm thinking about like, when should travel reopen, when will it, that it is really, really vital for so many people. But anyway, I think there's a decent chance by this summer, especially for places like Portugal, Spain, and Greece.
Actually, speaking of Greece, I mean, I know you touched upon Greece a bit. Do you think that will, based off Ryan's question here, will that change based off the islands like Santorini compared to just say Athens, or do you think that it'll all pretty much be similar in terms of rollout or when they open?
It's a good question. For Greece, I expect it to be pretty similar. I haven't seen any discussion of particular islands handling travel or tourism differently than Athens. I wouldn't say it's a certainty that there won't be one or two islands that'll go their own way, much in the same way that even in Hawaii, most of Hawaii, you can just go there right now with a negative test, but in Kauai, at least for the next week, you still have to basically be initially contained to your resort or your hotel. Like Kauai was handling tourists differently than other islands were in Hawaii. Another place you see they're talking about reopening different parts of the country in different timelines is Thailand. I believe it's Phuket is talking about opening up as early as July, but other parts of Thailand, Koh Samui and elsewhere is talking about October. It's talking about, full reopening for the country, not until next year. So there are some places where it might be a little bit patchworky. I don't expect Greece to be one of those for the most part, though. I think they're going to mostly reopen en masse, in large part because so many parts of Greece and the Greek islands are so dependent on tourism for their economy and to put food on the table there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I echo this sentiment from Eva that says, sorry, are we talking about travel? I must have missed that because I'm totally obsessed with Scott's dog. And I'm sad Chella's gone.
I know I can see right now she's off sunbathing at the moment where, I wasn't doing it for here off in the shade. She's finding greener pastures off in the sun.
There you go. Next question comes from Dina. Hi, Dina. She asks, we bought tickets on United before they instituted the no carry-on rule. Are we on the hook for it?
Good question. So, gosh, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head if United is one of the airlines where you can buy up to main economy after you book. I don't know that off the top of my head. That's the first thing I'll be looking at. And if I thought I was better at like slickly researching while I'm answering this question, I would do it right now. But it'll be very distracting for you all. I would not expect to be able to just get around the rule. So this is, I believe, United Basic Economy, where you are actually on domestic flights, you're not allowed a full-size carry-on. United is the only airline among the big airlines that has this rule, but they say not only can you not pay, you don't get a free check bag, you also don't get a free full-size carry-on. Julian looks like he might be searching to see if we can
very, very subtly
main economy, but that's what I would be hoping to do. Again, the rules are a little bit different if you're traveling internationally than if you're traveling domestically. So don't, necessarily read that rule and assume that it's the same. But if you're traveling domestically, you are not allowed to have a carry-on for basic economy. And I don't think you're going to be able to get around it. I think you'll have to be on the hook for it.
Yeah. To answer what you were originally saying, it looks like United did debut a upgrade from basic economy to regular economy, but that's only, like you were saying, on domestic tickets and short-haul international flights to Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central America.
Okay.
So that option is there. I think it debuted, like a month ago or something?
And I assume that's like a variable price. It's not like set, $30 or whatever. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what it looks like right now.
Yeah.
But again,
so I mean, unless you're somehow only traveling with a carry-on like laptop bag or something, I would anticipate having to pay a little bit extra for your bag one way or another.
Yeah. Andrew Luck, 1224. I remember him from 2 weeks ago. Asks, any suggestions for top travel spots? What's on your mind, Scott?
Oh boy. Top travel spots. I mean, gosh, domestic travel is all the rage right now while there's still a little bit of uncertainty about borders. I know a really hot one for folks right now is thinking outside the US, Iceland. Iceland, really, really popular. Yeah, it's a place where you can now visit with, if you've been vaccinated, you can get around the mandatory quarantine or testing requirements as long as you can show you've been fully vaccinated. So that's one that I think is very, very hot, very top right now. Belize as well, a place where you can, if you have been fully vaccinated, you can get around the testing requirements. I think you're going to see more and more countries start to do this vaccine passport idea as a way of trying to entice low COVID risk travelers back to their country. So yeah, Iceland and Belize, top travel spots.
Since you bring it up, we have a couple of questions that, of course, vaccines are on everyone's mind right now. Ali Reza asks, what are some of the countries we can go to if we're vaccinated? And Bobby asks, will being vaccinated affect travel?
So there are only a few countries where you could go today. You could hop on a plane today and visit with your fully vaccinated, white CDC vaccination card. And that allows you to bypass the quarantine or testing requirements. So the ones off the top of my head, Iceland, Belize, the country of Georgia. I want to say Ecuador might have actually just announced something along these lines. Julian, maybe you may be able to check real quick. But the other places, look, there are dozens and dozens of countries around the globe where you can visit right now with a negative test. But there's actually a half dozen countries that folks don't necessarily realize you can go to right now without any testing or quarantine requirement, even if you haven't been vaccinated. So that's Mexico, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Albania, North Macedonia, and good gosh, I should know this last one off the top of my head, Tanzania. So those are places where there's no kind of COVID restrictions in terms of testing or quarantine. I think you're going to start to see more and more countries start to see those restrictions start to fall by the wayside, especially for folks who have been vaccinated. But it's going to be different country to country, and it's going to be different for a while. There's not necessarily going to be a ton of places where you have to be vaccinated in order to enter, but think of it more like an easy pass lane on a toll road. You can get in, take that toll road even if you don't have the easy pass, but you're just going to have to take some other methods. It's going to take longer, whether that's a test, whether that's a quarantine, whether that's something else. It'll be slower and more difficult than if you had been fully vaccinated and you're just allowed straight through the easy pass lane.
Yeah. You are correct on Ecuador, as you always are, Scott. You can't be doubting yourself.
I don't lie. Yeah. Show me the lie.
Exactly. And it was as of March 22nd, so definitely very recent.
Awesome.
There you go. Our next question comes from Dora. We talked about Europe a bit. We talked about Greece, Spain. Any predictions for Japan?
Japan, one of the top places on folks' mind. I know very near and dear to your heart, Julian. Should be over the Pacific right now.
I should not be doing this Facebook Live. I think that's what it comes down to.
Look, I don't think Japan is going to reopen until the fall. And the reason why I don't think that is I had been cautiously hopeful that maybe they'd reopen by the summer. But the problem is now they've announced, no overseas fans for the Olympics, which are taking place late July, early August. And if they're not allowing fans in for that, then it's not going to be happening before that. They're not going to be allowing in tourism, but saying no visitors for the Olympics. So I think you're already, they're thinking September, possibly October for a reopening. That's when a number of different countries in Asia Pacific have announced. Thailand, we talked about, is saying kind of October. Australia also targeting that end of October. I would think a similar time frame for Japan, September, October, somewhere around there. That's what I'm hoping for at this point. Obviously, we're still about 6 months away from that. And so the closer kind of we get to the summer and fall and seeing how things unfold, the better idea we'll have. But keep asking. We're going to keep, giving my sort of best guess on the outlook each week. And hopefully it's coming up sooner rather than later.
Yeah. We have a few comments here that I'm super excited about. Arkiana, beautiful name that I'm butchering, says, got business class trip to Belize for July. Thanks to you guys. Super cheap at less than $700 round trip.
Nice. Congrats. That's awesome.
Always good. Carl, he says, your time mistake fare was amazing, but just wanted to let you know it took 1 month to get the refund, and it was prior to my dispute chargeback. Always use a good card for those things. Thanks for that, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, look, I along with so many other folks, was really bummed to see that TAP did not honor that mistake fare the way most airlines do honor mistake fares. Shame that it took that long to get a refund. Glad that it came through okay. There is no reason to doubt that the refund should come for anybody who hasn't gotten it yet. It's just a shame that it's taking longer than it should.
Yeah, and some comments that I think you'll be happy with. Benjamin said, was able to pre-order your book yesterday. Thanks for being an incredible resource hub and just an overall great service.
Benjamin, you're awesome. I love it. Yeah, take more vacations. Yo, I'm not going to lie. We just kind of first started telling folks about it, be outside of the Facebook Live. We just started telling folks about it on Monday. It already hit the Amazon top 100 bestseller list. And I am totally both like completely at a loss for words about it. I am so grateful and indebted to all your support, all your pre-orders. Shout out to the MVPs like Benjamin and Allison and everybody else who's been putting in those pre-orders for the book, because they matter so much to a first-time author like me. This is how you're able to get on bestsellers and get that attention that's usually so difficult to get for first-time authors. So thank you. I have a debt of gratitude to you. I appreciate it, and appreciate any else of you who have put in your pre-order as well. Let me know in the comment section. I want to give you all a shout out individually, because that is amazing, and I so appreciate all those pre-orders.
Another speaking of another MVP is Sandy. Sandy says, just got notified per Amazon that your book I pre-ordered will arrive May 13th.
Sandy, you're awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Actually, funny thing, I was talking to Sarah about your book yesterday when we were going through it, and she did say something funny. She was like, wait, wasn't Scott was a journalist before, right? So that means the book is probably actually well written. And I was like, yeah, that probably is what it means. So,
oh gosh, you're really setting me up for failure here. Once somebody reads like, wait, this actually kind of is garbage. Like, I don't actually like it.
Yeah, so there you go. Shao asks, thoughts on Australia in October and Cape Town in December?
Cape Town in December, I have very little doubt it'll be possible. I believe, I could be wrong off the top of my head, but I think you can go there now with a negative test. Yeah, you can go there now with a negative test already to South Africa. So very little doubt that that'll still be the case in December. Australia in October, they've targeted kind of October 31st is their reopen date. So it's, unless you're arriving before, on October 31st, I think unlikely, but it's possible that could get moved up. They if we've learned nothing else during the past 12 months, it's that these sorts of plans are written in pencil, not in pen. If I were planning a trip to Australia, I would probably try more for like November, December, and be able to. The good thing though, with any bookings to Australia is there are no basic economy flights to Australia. If you book a flight on, American or United, down to Australia. It's in main economy. And why do I mention that? Because main economy flights now automatically have flexibility where you can change your dates without having to pay any penalty to do so. If the new flight's more expensive, you do have to cover that fare difference. But if the new flight is cheaper, on most airlines, you actually get the difference back in the form of a travel credit. So the good news, I would, if it were me in your shoes, Shal, I would probably book a flight in November or December, get a good fare, but then, know that I have flexibility to push it back further in case the borders aren't open by October.
Yeah, let's. It seems like a lot of people have a few more specific country questions. Let's cover a couple more of them because I do want to get into it. Kevin asks, is the UK closed for travel? I have a ticket for April 25th and it doesn't look good. And then, well, I guess I'll let you answer that one first and then we'll move on.
Yeah, they do a mandatory quarantine. So I can't remember if it's 10 days or 5 days. It's not short. You're going to have to do a mandatory quarantine on arrival for then. If it's a trip that you can change, how many days?
10 days.
10 days. Yeah. I mean, if it's a trip you can push back, I think it's more likely that tourism will be open by, let's say, June than April. But that's sort of the lay of the land at this point.
Steven asks, one of my weirdly favorite questions to answer. He asks, and this is more specific, but obviously we want to get your thoughts on the bigger picture here too. Do you think it's possible to find a good deal on an Italy flight for June, or do you think I'm too late in the game? And then, what are your thoughts on just booking periods in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think it's too late. I think if you live in a larger city, especially one where there's a lot of competition between airlines. So think, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, especially New York, Boston, DC, your odds are better. And if you live in either a small city or a city that has a big monopoly like Atlanta with Delta, your odds might not be quite as good. Obviously it's still very much up in the air. Will Italy even be open for American tourists by June? I don't think it's too late by any stretch. But I would probably try to get something booked in the next few weeks or next month at the latest. If you wait until the last month or two to book an international flight over the summer, the chances are that you'll still be able to find something cheap, not terribly great. We talk about these Goldilocks windows when cheap flights are most likely to pop up. And for international flights, it's usually like 2 to 8 months ahead of time. But for peak summer flights, for peak travel season flights, you want to add a couple months to that. So it's more like 4 to 10 months. The only reason obviously we're closer than 4 months to June, but the only reason I'm still holding out hope here, and I think why you're in a decent position, is just because there's very little in the way of forward bookings right now. Not many in a normal year in 2019. All those cheap seats to Italy for June had already been sold by March 31st. Right now, not very many have, because not many people are booking, because obviously with the border restrictions and all. Yeah, I think there's still some hope. Is the conclusion here?
Yeah, Carla actually, since we were talking about Iceland and some of these other places, Carla does bring up a good point where she says, note that in some cases like Iceland, that babies and children don't necessarily get around the vaccine travel exemptions.
Really good point. Yeah, so Belize is a country where they do, if you're traveling with children under 5, they don't have to have any testing or requirements. If you're traveling with kids between 5 and 16 who can't get the vaccine today, they can come with you as long as they have a negative test before arriving. But Iceland has said that kids, 16 and under who can't get the vaccine also cannot get around the mandatory quarantine requirement for unvaccinated people. And so this, for at least until they update that policy or have some sort of workaround, it's only really open for vaccinated adults to travel to Iceland right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlo. That's definitely a good reminder for
Yeah.
those booking these flights. Jafar asks,
One quick thing I want to say on that
go ahead.
too. As somebody with a 2-year-old, I wish that weren't the case for Iceland, but more importantly, I don't expect that to be the way most countries reopen. I anticipate that most countries that do reopen and allow vaccinated people to have some workaround are also going to have accommodations for people who are traveling with kids. So, you have a test, for instance, that you can have a negative test requirement for kids 16 and under, even if the parents, don't have to have any testing because they've already been vaccinated. I think most countries are going to adopt more the Belize model than the Iceland model.
Yeah, there you go. Jafar asked, we booked a flight to Lisbon on a mistake fare and got canceled 3 days later after we had our seat selected, e-tickets issued, etc. Do we have any recourse? Can we hold TAP to honor the price? And was anyone successful with TAP honoring that price? We are still waiting for our refund. It's already been 3 weeks.
Yeah, listen, that I was bummed about that too. That TAP did not honor that mistake fare the way most airlines do. I know we had a lot of teammates here at SCF who booked that deal and were in the similar boat. Generally speaking, it's not possible to force an airline to honor the price after they've made the decision to cancel. Before 2015, it was actually a federal law that airlines had to honor whatever ticket that price that they sold it at. But in 2015, they changed the law to say that in cases of where it's an obvious mistake, they don't have to honor it. They can retroactively cancel it. And so, look, a lot of folks thought, including myself in 2015, that this is the end of mistake fares. We'll never be able to get a mistake fare again.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that the airlines actually most of the time still continue to honor mistake fares. Julian, I don't know if you've gotten any mistake fares yourself. I've gotten, ones for $130 round trip to Milan, $169 round trip to Japan, $225 round trip to Barcelona and to Brussels twice. These are all mistake fares that I've gotten and taken myself that the airline did honor, even if they weren't legally required to. They just, they don't want a PR nightmare on their hands the way TAP has right now with all the tickets that they canceled. But usually when an airline does decide to cancel the tickets, A, they do so quickly, usually within the first few days after booking, and B, there's not a whole lot you can do as a traveler. You just, darn it, this stinks. Just lick our wounds for an hour and then on to the next one and hope that the next mistake fare works out better.
Yeah, and actually, it's our friend Allison commented, who was in this exact same situation. She said, hey guys, got my refund from TAP, and they covered my hotel booking too. Getting nervous about travel to Paris in early September because of the slow vaccine rollout. Thoughts? So at least, didn't get the ticket, but did get the refund. So,
and super interesting that they covered your hotel booking, because that's actually one of the things that I'd actually love to hear more about that, Allison. Like, had you booked a non-refundable hotel booking, and what was the process of getting that reimbursed by the airline? Because this is actually in that 2015 rule that we mentioned from the Department of Transportation. They said when an airline cancels your ticket, they are required to reimburse you for any non-refundable accommodations or bookings you might have made. And I hadn't heard many instances of people testing that, but it sounds like Allison was able to get that, which is really, really great to hear. In terms of travel to Paris in early September, I'm still pretty confident that it's going to happen, even though things are looking bad right now in a lot of ways. The drastic measures that they're taking right now in terms of lockdown are making it more likely that travel is going to be possible again sometime this summer, or certainly by early September. I gun to my head guess about when travel for Americans will reopen to Paris. I would say August, maybe 50-50 chance, a little bit earlier or a little bit later, but I feel pretty confident that early September will be possible. So I would, if I was planning to take a trip, then I would certainly book that flight, especially if you find a cheap fare.
Yeah. Final question, Scott.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Beth asks, is it true that today is the last day to purchase airfare before everyone reinstates change fees?
Yeah, so on a lot of airlines, a lot of the big airlines, think American, Delta, United, Alaska, ones like that, what they've said is that they have permanently gotten rid of change fees if you book in main economy or higher, but they temporarily got rid of change fees if you booked basic economy. End of March is the deadline for that. And then starting in April, all of a sudden, if you book basic economy, your tickets are locked in. So it's not that there's a change fee if you book in basic economy. It's that you cannot change your flights for any fee. And so obviously this is the airlines trying to get you to pay a little bit more to buy up to main economy when you book rather than basic economy. And so if there's a trip you're looking at, today could be a very fortuitous timing, because if you book that basic economy flight, not only you get the cheapest fare, but you also get flexibility to be able to change your dates later on without paying that normal like $200-$400 penalty.
I think Delta, from what I've seen, I think Delta is the only one so far that has offered wave changes on basic economy through the end of April. That's what I've read from our actually amazing flight experts. But awesome. Beyond that, it doesn't look like, American definitely just said, yeah, end of March is it. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, shoot, I'm learning stuff here right now. I've been offline earlier today down at the doctor, and so yeah, getting me up to speed.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks everybody for the great questions. Man, excited. Weather's warming up. People are getting vaccinated. We're dreaming about travel again. This is all looking really, really great. I'm excited. I'm glad to hear your awesome questions. A huge shout out again to everybody who's pre-ordered Take More Vacations. Yep. It means the world to me. And a round of applause for my main man, Julian. Killing it as always. Appreciate you, Julian.
Yeah,
and an old tip of the hat to Chella, who the dog, who is eyeing me very hungrily right now. I better go give her some dinner. So anyway, thanks you all. Appreciate it. And we'll be back next week.